continue with trying to think about how we can write the verse function properly. And I think the best place to start is to write the test. So I presented you here in the text with a couple of tests that really actually cover everything you need to write these. Boy, let me get over to my editor. Okay, so I'm going to augment this here with these actual tests. And let me see if I can format this nicely. And so the actual first verse should be these 3 lines. The actual second verse should be these 4 lines of text. And so again, if we run our test on this, it's going to be completely wrong, and now it's really getting difficult to see. The more text that's there, the harder it is to make this work. Oh, let's see, these need to be indented. That's going to be a problem. Let's try this again. Okay, much better. Okay, so we're very far off from where our verses need to be. So let's think about this. So I've already I don't want to give away the game. I'm going to let you play around with how to make the ordinal value there. I'm just going to leave this on the something day of Christmas. But I'm going to make this go a little further with this. That this, I could call this, say, first line. That's going to be the first line. I always know that's always going to be the same, and it's really going to be on the ordinal day of Christmas, right? So thinking about, like, with the value 1, it's going to be something. For the value 2, it's going to be something, and on and on. And since I only have to worry about the first 2 for this right now, I'm just going to leave it like that. I could say return first for the moment. Whoops, I need my terminal back. So let me go back into there, and I can say make test and see where I am. So it's right now it's printing on the something day, on the first day. So I'm just going to leave this for now, day. Okay, and after the first line, there needs to be 2 other lines. So on the first day of Christmas, my true, let's see, are these separate lines? I need to look. Yes. On the first day of Christmas, comma, and this is going to be, I guess, a list. So, at this point, I could say verse is going to be equal to this list. So it's going to be that. The second part, the second line here is my true love gave to me. And now I can say I can return these as I can join them, the verse. Maybe it's bad to call this verse because that's the name of the function. Let's call it lines here for now. Okay, and let's see, not license, lines. And what's nice here is that I can actually, if I want, I could go over here and I have to take these out. Whoops. But I can, would like that to go away. I can save this. Sometimes I do this where I'll take my function definition and I'll go over here to Python and I'll drop it in here. I can have no empty lines in here, but then I can say verse 1 and I can just see what it looks like. Okay, on the one day of Christmas my true love gave to me. And now I need to figure out how to have the gifts. Presumably I'm going to have the gifts in some sort of a collection where I can iterate over them. And the iteration is going to be based upon counting down from the given day. So the days are going to be something like, they're going to list each one of like what is the gift on the first day, what is the gift on the second day. And then I need to somehow, I'm going to have a for loop, maybe that's a good place to start for, I can't say day because that's already here, so I'll just say in range. And again, it's going to have something to do with the day. So let's say lines.append n. And what do we get for that? Let me go back here and remove this, and I'm going to take that. That's an idea. What is this? If I run that and now I say verse 1, what do I get? Okay, let's see. It didn't like that for range and day. I have to think about, it's an unhappy sequence item 2. I have to think here. Now I'm a little stuck. So if day is equal to 1, let me just make sure what is going to be range of day. And it's going to be, if I make that into a list, comes up with 0. Well, I can see one thing that's right away is that I want to be counting from the day. I need to count in reverse. So we saw that before, where we could count from day down to 0 and using -1. And let's see what that looks like. Let's run that and say print in. So that's good. That's a good way to start. Let's take this. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it into my REPL. Let's see. Made a mess. Let's try again. And now let's call verse for 1. Boy, I'm still... I wonder what I'm doing wrong here. So lines is a list. Let's see. Okay, well, it's always a good teaching moment here. Let's comment these guys out. Let's paste this in and see what I'm doing wrong. And I'll say verse 1. Make sure that it's still giving me that. That's good. Give me a second here. I finally realized my error here. It's telling me expected a string instance found an int, and it's because I've been I mistakenly introduced integers. This is an integer value into a list that contains strings. So I need to convert this to a string value. So I can do that with the str. So if I take this, copy this, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to understand what a verse function could do. On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 1. Let's change that to 2. So on the second day of Christmas, my true love gave to me the second gift and then the first gift. I can run that all the way up to 12, and I can see that it counts down from 12 to 1. If I say, it's a little hard to read, so if I say print, then those new lines will be turned into strings that I can see. So that's getting me in the range of where I need to be. So I don't want to give this away. I want you to work with this program and struggle with it a little bit, but you basically have this idea that the first 2 lines are always going to be the same for every verse. It's going to be on the given day of Christmas, my true love gave to me, and then you're going to have to iterate over all of the gifts from that day down to 1. That's going to be what you do for each verse. But you're going to call those verses by going through for each day in those. So if we, for instance, if we try to run this program right now, what do we get for -n2? So on the one day of Christmas, my true love gave to me whatever is the first gift. On the second day of Christmas, whatever is the second and then the first. And so this is looking pretty good. If we go to 5, we see that it counts the first and then it has the 1. Second, 2 to 1. Third day, 3 to 1. And so this is the basic outline of the program, and that's really all I want to give you. I want you to figure out how to go from here to make the full program work. One other thing that's missing here is that there needs to be an extra new line after each verse. So you could, for instance, just print again. That would be one way, but then so it visually separates each one of the verses from each other, but then the problem is that it puts an extra new line at the end. So that may or may not be a great way to do this. I'm going to leave that up to you. We've already talked about how we will call the verse function. We could call it like this. So if you use a for loop to build up your verses, this is one way you could do it using append. I don't usually like to do that. When I see this pattern, I immediately think that would be better expressed as a list comprehension. So this would be another way that I might write that. So once you figure out how to sing the correct verse for any given day. And honestly, if you figure out how to make the first two verses, if you can get these two working, presumably you can make any of the other verses. So once you figure out how to sing the verse, then it's really just a question of figuring out how to call it the right number of times to produce the right number of verses. Now, if you have verses as a list, can you think of how you could print them out with two new lines in between them? I'm just going to go ahead and point out that this can be rewritten as this. So a list comprehension can almost always be rewritten in a shorter manner using a map statement. So you could think about that. You don't have to do that. I do talk about here about printing. The other thing that you have to think about printing is printing that to an output file, and the default being sys.standardout. So how you might go about that, you should think about it. I'm going to leave this up to you. You have the test to guide you, and I wish you